Hi everyone, we're finally going to divide complex numbers. We're going to take the quotient of two non-zero complex numbers and express the result in standard form. And we're going to rationalize, or more precisely, realize the denominators with the help of perhaps complex conjugates. Now, the first step is to simplify all radicals. So for example, if you see something like the square root of -7 or the square root of -9, make sure that you rewrite them with I and non-negative radicands. In step 2, we'll talk about different strategies on how you can realize a denominator. And remember, our result, our final answer, has to be in standard form. A plus bi, where a and b are real. Example. Let's simplify the following expression. We're dividing the complex number 4 minus I by the complex number 3i. We want to express the quotient in standard form. The result is a complex number that we want to write in standard form. Well, here's a question. What's a fast way of getting a real result? Remember, the goal here is that we want a real result, preferably rational. Now, we could use the complex conjugate, -3i, and multiply on the top and the bottom, but we don't even have to be that ambitious. If we just want a real denominator, it would suffice just to multiply by I on the bottom and on the top. It might help to put parentheses here just to emphasize that the fraction bar groups the top and the I here, in fact, distributes. And by the way, if you want to make sure you get a positive denominator right off the bat, some people might actually want to multiply by -I on the bottom and the top, because then the denominator will be +3 in the end. But it's up to you. Okay, so let's take this expression and let's multiply by I over I. Again, the common theme here is that we're multiplying by 1 creatively. Well, I is the simplest thing that we can multiply 3i by, so we get a real denominator. And why is that? So on the bottom, we're going to get 3i squared, which will be real. What's 3i squared going to be? Well, when you multiply anything by I squared, you're taking its opposite, right? So that's going to end up being -3. The I up here, remember, is going to distribute. That's one reason why the parentheses might be helpful. You don't need them technically, but they're sometimes helpful visually. 4 times I is 4i, minus I times I is I squared. Don't do too much in your head, otherwise it's quite likely that you'll mess up a sign. Now, again, what is I squared? I squared is -1. So let's use that. On the top, we have 4i minus -1. It may be good to actually write that out. On the bottom, it might help to just write -3 immediately, but it is 3 times -1. Make sure you put 3 times -1. Don't write 3 minus 1. That's wrong. Either put parentheses or just say, hey, it's -3, the product. All right, on the top, we have 4i plus 1, and on the bottom, we have -3. Again, you can skip this and go straight to here. Now, we're not quite done yet, because we have to write the result in standard form. A plus bi, where a and b are real. If b is negative, this will flip to a minus sign. All right. Well, first of all, we may want to split the fraction, because we want 2 terms here. So let's split the fraction. And some of you might actually want to do an intermediate step. Put another step in here. So this here equals 4i divided by -3 plus 1 over -3. Now, if you look at 1 over -3, it should be evident that the -1 factor down here could pop out, and we get -1/3. The reason why this works is because 1 divided by -1 is -1. Okay, normally we don't like popping out factors from the denominator out here, but a -1 factor you can pop out for this reason. So we end up with -1/3 over here as our real part. Now over here on the left, we have 4i divided by -3. Again, the -1 factor on the bottom, we can pop out outside. So we get -4i over 3. And I realize this sounds kind of gross, but we also have the right to pop out the I. I is a factor of the top. We can pop out the I. So we end up with, over here, we have -4/3 times I. Bear in mind, if I is in the bottom, we cannot pop out the I straight up like that. But if I is a factor of the top, we are allowed to pop out the I like so. So once again, a -1 factor on the bottom, we can pop out on the side. But an I factor on the bottom, we cannot pop out to the side. An I factor on the top, however, we can pop out to the side. All right. Incidentally, 1 divided by I is -I, not I itself. All right. Anyway, we're still not quite done yet because we don't have the correct order. We have to switch the order of the two terms because we need the real part to be first. So the -1/3 goes over on the left, it's the real part, and then the -4/3 I goes over on the right. And finally, we have standard form. -1/3 minus 4/3 I. Again, the I should be popped out. This complex number divided by this complex number is this complex number in standard form. Next, we're going to talk about a more complicated example where we are going to need the complex conjugate.